Shalom. Hag Sameach. We're sitting in the sukkah here in Gush Etzion. The weather has just changed. It's been hot and dry for a long time. It seems like a few weeks at least. And tonight we're sitting in a cloud, literally. The mist is blowing through the air. The lights are flashing. The cats are running. It's really, you feel like I'm on the deck of a ship at sea. And it's not a smooth sea either. And rain is dripping off the schach. But we're here, and we're enjoying ourselves in the sukkah, and trying to stay warm. And it's good, glad to be here with all of you. And we're learning in our daily class of Rabbi Nachman on Patreon. We're learning live tonight. We're going to try to learn every night from the sukkah. In our daily series to finish Likutei Moharan, this magnum opus of literally 410 Torahs, which probably comprises, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of words. And it's every day it's a new surprise. What can I tell you? And I've made it my goal in Patreon to finish this sefer with an English translation and whatever commentaries we are gifted to share. And in Sukkah, in the Sukkot, in this amazing holiday, we are promised that these clouds of glory, these transcendent intellectual power that just beyond our consciousness, it's that next level of godliness that you have yet to receive into your mind. It's the next brilliant idea that's been waiting right outside the wall, the door of your mind, just to come in. Well, it's here in the sukkah. And you see, just sit in the sukkah and things come down, new understanding. Now, it might not be new to the entire world, but it'll be new to you. It'll be your next level of godly perception. And we've reached this point in the text where the Rabbi Nachman, is explaining about God and his contractions, how he takes his own infinite light, which is inconceivable to a finite being, and contracts it into a form that a finite being like the human can receive it. Think about it for a minute. Something that is so big, how does it make itself small? Something so massive, so huge as eternity and infinity suddenly become accessible to a little, 5'10", 180-pound guy. Or for that matter, a 5'2", 100-pound lady. It doesn't matter. Our brain is so unused, we have no idea how much God enables us to grasp if we just create the space. And that's really the secret of humility, is creating that empty space within our mind in order to receive that which is beyond, just beyond our mind. We don't have to eat the whole birthday cake at once. It's just layer by layer by layer by layer. As we've talked about in our class on the cosmic onion, that the whole universe, as Zohar says, is built like an onion, layer upon layer. And we live in the continuum between good and evil, ultimate good and, its opposite. So we're in Torah Lamed Gimel, and we're in the second paragraph, Bet. And we are about, 10 lines or so down. It says, Ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu tzimtzem et elokuto b'tzimtzumim rabim v'shonim. God contracted his godliness in many types of contractions that differ from each other. They're not all the same. Now there is a hierarchy of the contractions themselves. Right? We know in the beginning it was all infinite light. The Arizal teaches us. There was nothing but infinity. There's no handle, no definition, except the only definition is that there's no definition. There's no handle for the human mind to grasp. So God has to start breaking himself down literally into smaller and smaller pieces of infinity in order for us to be created, in order for us to have an intellect and a consciousness to perceive something that great that exists everywhere in all times and all places, within us and around us. So Vev Kol Almin, he surrounds all worlds. Umechaye Kol Almin, and he gives life within all worlds. Now, these Simsumim, elsewhere in Likutei Moharan and in the Kabbalah in general, we are told that God constricted himself into the Aleph Bet of all places. The light of the infinite mind is in the structure called the Aleph Bet. Aleph Bet, Gimel Dalet, etc., all 22 letters, and then the Nevi'im fixed the 5 final letters, Man Sepach, which is another concept in Kabbalah, but we're not going to go there tonight. Right now, just what does it mean to take infinite light and put it in letters? Obviously, we're not just talking about little shapes on a page. Right? We're talking about forms and structures that begin with a dot and make a line and make a curve, but we're also talking about names of the letters, their numerical values, their sounds, and the mixing of their sounds, and the vowel points that attach to those sounds, and the vibrations that emerge from those sounds. Take us back deeper and deeper into the primordial first moments of creation. So when you ask where God is, well, really we should say everywhere, but that answer is too easy. It gets boring after a while. You should say, well, God is actually in the Aleph Bet, and he's communicating. And guess what? Rabbi Nachman also teaches us that Aleph Bet gives life force to all the other languages. That you can follow the 2 and 3 letter roots of Hebrew and find them in every other language. And there's a transpositional value of meaning that follows these consonant roots around, so that you can find any concept in any language and follow it back to Hebrew. I like to call it translingual interpretation, right? And maybe we'll talk, give a few examples of that, as we go. But understand that we can understand. We can't grasp God's infinity, but we can grasp that which he created to hold it for us. And then when you learn it, it opens up your mind. It sparks your mind with light, with life, with joy, with understanding. And you can see that the name of everything is the root source of its life force. So, I see you're there, Tzvi Cohen. How you doing? Chag Sameach, Tzvi. Tzvi is a deer. Okay, so the word Tzvi, Tzadik, Bet, Yud, has a structure. It has it's an energy map that flows through those letters, through the tree of life, through the 22 pathways of the letters and the 10 sphirot. And if you map those letters, you will come out with a shape. And if you're lucky, it might even look like a deer. Depends on how good an artist you are. But really, these letters are energy maps of how the infinite brings its light into a finite, constricted realm called planet Earth. Well, the entire universe, actually, the physical universe at least. Okay, and the Rebbe goes on, from the beginning of thought, God didn't just start creating. He thought about it first. Just like any good creator, he's going to think about what he's doing. He's going to conceive of it in his mind before he makes the first move to buy the first board or the first nail. He's going to think about it a long time. Mireshit hamakshava ad nekuda hamerkaz shel olam hagashmi. All the way down from thought into how it looks in the physical world. So as an artist or a creative person of any kind, whatever your medium is, I don't care if it's baking cakes or building buildings, you need to see that thing finished in your mind to reach it at the best level. Now sometimes you say, I don't know what that cake's going to look like, I don't know what that building's going to look like. Well, we need to do the best we can. The closer we get in our mind, in our conception, the better we have a chance of recreating it in the physical world of materiality. Shisham midor klipot, and here in this world is where all the negative forces are. What are called the klipot, the shells, those filters that seek to hide the light. And they're everywhere, believe me. And they're not just outside of us, some of them are inside of us. And the more something falls from the infinite to the finite, the further it falls into greater and greater constrictions. God's light is still enclosed there. But mabushim rabim yoter, and more garments. So the further something falls from the infinite light to the finite light, the greater the number of garments that cover it. It makes sense. If like you jump out of an airplane through a cloud, layers of clouds, you get wetter and wetter as you fall through the clouds. So too, the sparks of God's desire are in us, but they first have to go through many layers to create the 10 sefirot of your personality, and the 5 parts sufim of your family, and the 12 parts sufim of your community, etc., etc. All of those are multiplicities of layers of the original sefirot that broke and fell and were rebuilt and then created, as it says in Tikkun Zohar, in Petach Eliyahu, the garments that become our psychic personalities. We are literally made of lights. Now, Zeh Shegalu HaChamenu, and this is what our rabbis revealed. The wise men revealed, Shupitchu li petach, open for them an opening. Sha'amaskil yedav yavin, that the intelligent person will know and understand. Shebechol adavarim gashmiim, that in every material thing, yesh elokuto, there is God's life force. And it's holy. That spark is holy. But when it falls really deep, well, it gets pretty unholy. It can cause a lot of damage. Now, if you look at even in the 10 Commandments, you can see it. The positive and the negative commandments contradistinct each other, one for another. And we're not going to go into that now, but there are a whole Maimorim just about that subject. How every good thing you find, there's an equal and opposite power in the other side, and it is simply a spark that fell very, very far into the lower realms. You start out with the love of God, and you can end up loving a lot of other things besides God in this physical realm. And each step further from loving the infinite takes us a little further out in those shells, in those filters that hide the original love. Kamo Shamru Chazal, as our sages taught. Tat bekafti bekatfi shtayim. Now this is a drasha of Rabbi Akiva from the Talmud about the word totafot, which is, of course, the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, used that word totafot to describe tefillin. But nobody was sure what it was. And Rabbi Akiva came along because he had a little experience in the world. He said, tat from totafot, those first 2 letters are in the language called katfi, which I believe is, I don't know if anybody's speaking katfi these days, but it's somewhere in the Middle East. And pat, totafot, or fot, right? Bafriki. That's in an African language, and how many African languages there are today, go figure. But there was one back then called Afriki, Shtayim. So from there we learned 2 and 2. From Tefillin, the Sephardim, many people were actually Rabbeinu Tam and Rashi Tefillin at the same time, because of the numerical drash here. Lodia shebechol lashonot, but it's really there to teach us that in all languages you can find the light of God. Okay? V'yesham elokuto that gives it life force. So, I didn't prepare anything but off the top of my head. Take any word that you know. Orange. Orange is English for tapuz in Hebrew. But orange, break the word down. Or is light. And then the rest of the words are Ange. Ange, I don't know, Angie. But those letters have vibrational power. They have the ability to create a vessel. And so you can say that an orange is the light of Nun Gimel, or Nun J. Nun, there is no J in Hebrew. We usually write it as a Gimel with a little chupchik on top, right? But those letters are still there in English. They're just garments that are further out from the garment in Hebrew. Okay, now a lot of the names of things in Hebrew are onomatopoeic, which means that their meaning is reflected in their sound. So tapuz, I guess maybe if you step on an orange, it's going to go tapuz. Maybe, not sure. But this is something you can look for over and over, and you'll see it in any language. It's easy, like in concepts like in Hebrew, Abba. Right? Abba is father. In Latin, it's padre. Right? And again, that changes along the way through Italian and then French and Spanish. And padre becomes vater in German, and that becomes father in English. So you see, it's kind of like a phonetic migration. I like that phrase. It's a phonetic migration from the Hebrew into all the other languages. But it's still carrying the original spark of meaning. And that spark of meaning means that you have a father, you know him, you love him, you miss him, you think of him. That means the word father has power to release emotion inside, and memories, thoughts, and good feelings. Maybe some other not such good feelings, but that's okay. That's life. Okay, so this is what he's saying, that the Or Elokuto is mitzumtzam. It's constricted within these vessels of sound called the languages of humanity. Even Katfi and Afriki. Too much. And the Talmud Yerushalmi says, he brings something similar to what we were just saying. If someone says to you, "Where is your God, Jew?" What are you supposed to tell him? Tamarlo, say to him, "Bikra gadol sheberomi," in the great city of Rome. In other words, you don't take, God's in the Beit HaMikdash. Well, that's too easy. In the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. No, you say God is in your temple, in your city. He's just under more and more garments. More hidden. Shneimar Eli Kara Misair. And he brings a verse that says, "My God calls me from Seir." Seir is the land that God willed to Esav, Jacob's rebellious brother, twin. Seir, it's right out here, about 20, 30 miles. Even the police told me they don't even go there. And God says it will be his forever. Do not take somebody's land who's not forever. So when they accuse us of being occupiers, we're not occupying something that the Bible restricts from us. We live in a land where people like to spin, and create all kinds of narrative. And therefore the man who says to you, "Where is your God?" With chutzpah, usually they say that kind of question. B'vadai, u'mishuka b'mador klipot. You can be certain someone who asks that question is stuck deep in the thick layers of materiality. And it's his chutzpah that's asking you the question, not any true metaphysical desire to know anything. He's being sarcastic. Ki otzi et atzmo min haklal. He's taking himself out of the general population of humanity. Ukafar be'ikar. And he denies in the essence, he might tell you on a good day, yeah, I believe in God, but he's way back there in the past somewhere in the, beneath the cobwebs in my great-great-grandfather's church somewhere. God's not here with us today. Forget about that. He's kfar be'ikar. He's denying the essential fact that we believe in as Jews is his infinite, eternal presence here and now today, in the details of our lives, in the languages that we speak, in the life force that we get from his creation. And you can get life force from a lot of places besides food. You can get life force from the air you breathe, from the eyes, from the things you see, from the things you hear. They all receive power. Next time somebody sends you a check, it's just a piece of paper. But you'll notice that you wake up when you get that check because it has life force attached to it. Or money. You find a 50 shekel piece on the floor, piece of paper. All of a sudden your eyes light up. Oh, I found a bill. Now, if you're Orthodox, or if you're not just Orthodox, I should say, any good-hearted person is going to look around and say, where did this come from? Who did this fall from? And I've had wonderful experiences where money fell out of my pocket. You reach your hand in your pocket, and you always come back with more than you think. And an Arab fellow behind the desk found the 200 shekels that was sitting there on the floor. So there are good people everywhere, in every religion, in every place. And if we believe that and think that and live with that, you will find the good people. And if you think about the opposite and the bad and things, you will always find the bad. But this guy who says to you, where's your God, Jew? Well, that's the kind of guy you say, well, I think you come with me to yeshiva and we'll learn for 20 years and we'll talk about it. But really, they tell you, in Rome, in New York City, brother, in the Lower East Side, that's where I started out. Come there, we'll find God. In the Bowery, in Skid Row. And he says, Heichan Elokecha nidme lo shememakomot ein sham Elokim. It seems to him that God's not in his place. See, that's the real clinch. That he doesn't feel God in his own place. And if you don't feel God in your own place, how do you think you're going to see it in somebody else's place? So we've got to, be a little large about this. If you happen to feel God at home and at your Shabbos table, then, well, we have to understand that he's also on the guys that don't even have Shabbos. They don't even know what Shabbos is yet. They don't even feel it yet. And therefore, Tomarlo, and say to him, Afilu b'mekomo she'ata meshuka, even in the place where you are sunk, b'madora klipot, in the lowest level of the deepest filters of impurity, gam keim sham tuchal limtso elokuto, you could still find God in those lower places. Kihu mechaye et hakol, because he gives life to everything. Everything. And next time you see an insect and it's bothering you, instead of thinking about how it's bothering you, just look at it like a flying miracle. Because that's what it is. And just, before he bites you, get out, push him away. And you give life to everything. And from there, at that place, you can attach yourself to Hashem. And come back to Him with true return and desire and longing and restoration. Because God is not far from us. How many times have we felt this? I feel far from God, but I know intellectually that He's still close. Because He has to be. He has to be driving every molecule where it needs to go. Or keeping the right molecules in the right place before there's some kind of, fission reactor in heaven. No, we have to know, even if we feel far, He's close. And that will bring Him into our farness. That's a funny word. Farnes? I don't know. Mifarnes. That's a good one, Tzvi, huh? Ella shemamakomcha sham rabu aluvushi. But just, unfortunately, a lot of times, the garments are very, very abundant. There's a lot of filters between us and the divinity of things. And the more a person goes from level to level, he gets closer to Hashem. And he can know God with more and more understanding. Because the higher the level a person reaches, because then the garments become fewer, thinner, the blocks. Tzvi, you should always be surrounded by your loved ones and your friends in the sukkah and wherever you go. And these garments, they get smaller. Now, we were talking about this earlier in the sukkah, that the fewer the filters between us and God, the more we feel things. The more we feel the joy, and the more we can feel the pain as well. So it's that sensitivity that we're driving towards, but we have to know how to deal with the sensitivity, and that's a challenge too. That's a different discussion. And then as we get closer, the contractions are fewer. And since the contractions, the hiddenness is less, he becomes more apparent to us. Why? Here's the line we all need. He can love himself. You hear what he says? He doesn't say you can love God more as you get closer to him. He says you can love yourself more with God. That is a very peculiar phrase. This is the le'ahov et Hashem. Le'ahov et Hashem im Hashem. Be'ava yetera. With greater love. See, because ultimately love is not ours, my friends. It is not our commodity. It's not in our bank account. Love is a gift that comes from the source of love. And it fills us, and then we can love other things. And one of the other things that we need to love is ourselves. And we can love ourselves with God's love for us. And it's not selfish, and it's not tricky, and it's not a mind game. It just means, wow, if God loves me, why don't I? So I want to bless everyone with that love here in the night of Yaakov Avinu in the Sukkah. And we should be blessed to sit many more nights in the Torah and light nights in the Sukkah and on Shabbat and all the Jewish calendar the year long, because this is the life we were created for, my friends. God bless you all. We'll see you again in the Holy Sukkah 5782. We're getting closer. All the best.